Hi, this is Bob Odell from Root Source, and today I am pleased to be sitting next to the daughter of the mayor of Tel Aviv in the year 1948. I am sitting next to Iry Ricci.
Right.
How are you doing today?
Fine. Nice to sit with you and talk.
Well, you know, we met I think about 6 months ago by coincidence in Israel, and I got to meet you and asked you if you might be willing to tell us at Root Source a little bit about what it was like to be in Israel at its refounding in 1948. So thank you for joining us.
Okay, you're welcome.
I want to start by asking you just about today. You are, so where are we right now? What city are we?
We are in Mevaseret Zion. It's a suburb of Jerusalem, just 10 minutes outside of Jerusalem.
From Tel Aviv, you're going to come through Mevaseret
Right.
Before you get to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
What does the word Mevaseret mean?
Mevaseret means to announce something. It has to be something special, but it can be good news and it can also be bad news.
Oh, interesting. So here we are, and can you tell us just a bit about your family today?
About my family
Yeah,
today?
uh-huh.
Yes, I'm married to David Ricci, who is emeritus professor at the Hebrew University in political science.
Very nice.
And we have 3 wonderful daughters who are all married and have their families.
Well, and obviously you have been in the land for many years, so let's talk a little bit about that. Let's start with your father's family. Your father, who was mayor of Tel Aviv. What is his name?
His name is Israel. In Hebrew we say Israel. Rokach.
Okay. And so when did his family come to Israel?
His family came to Israel, to Palestine actually, in around 1840, 1850.
1840 or
Yeah.
50?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's
That's
so
like
early.
5 generations ago.
Where did they come from?
The one who first came, his name was Israel Bach. He came from the Ukraine.
Really? So look, I heard, like the first Aliyah wave was really from Yemen, and that actually maybe 1882, and then from some from Russia came and so forth. But this is all another, what is that, 40 years earlier than that?
Yeah.
So was it just like the family, like somebody, just one family decided to come, or how did that work?
There was a settlement of Jews in the town of Safed.
Safed, yes.
Safed.
Up near Sea of Galilee, a little bit north of that.
Up. And he was not the only one who came, but he didn't come as a part of a group. He came to the Holy Land. He was a religious Jew, and his business in the Ukraine was he had a printing house.
Huh.
And there was none in this country at that time, so
yes.
he brought with him the machinery, and that was the first printing house in the country.
That is amazing. I know Safed is a place where I've heard stories about certain rabbis who would come there and to study, and it's actually one of the 4 holy cities or something.
Right.
And,
Yeah. Right.
And so you're
Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he moved later on. He moved to Jerusalem,
Okay.
and so forth and so on.
Okay. And then what about your mother's family? When did they?
My mother
come?
grew up in Germany, in
Okay.
a town called Mainz.
Mainz. Oh, that's a very famous
Yeah.
town in terms of there's
Right.
some tough history there
Right.
related to the Jews.
So she her mother's family consisted of 5 brothers and sisters, and at the late 20s or around 1930, they started feeling that things are not going to go well for the Jews, and one of the brothers especially insisted that they should go to Palestine. And they had lots of arguments about it, but at the end he convinced them, and all 5 immigrated to Palestine, and my mother came along also.
Wow. So 5 brothers
Yeah,
make the decision, we're going to do this. And that's not like an Aliyah wave or anything, or
not in Aliyah wave. There were others who thought like this.
Yes.
Most German Jews thought that because they were so active in the German society and so successful that nothing will happen to them.
right,
Even till the last minute there was some who didn't leave.
right.
So they were lucky that they listened to the right person.
Wow. And so like, do you know if they were like, had they like heard some of the speeches of Hitler, were they worried
For
maybe
sure,
he might
yes.
come to power?
Yes,
And that it could not go well for the Jews at that time?
definitely. Yeah, they had the
Wow.
senses to predict.
You know, I am so impressed to hear that story because, you know, when people tell the stories of immigration, it's not easy. It is an extremely difficult decision to make, and it is a huge sacrifice.
Right.
And for them to have the foresight, so few people did have the foresight.
Right. My grandmother, my mother's mother, suffered terribly because they came to Tel Aviv.
Yes?
In those years, Tel Aviv was like a pile of sand, more or less.
This was
Or
like
at
in the
least
20s, late 20s?
29,
Okay.
30. That's how she felt. I don't think it was like this.
She had some pretty nice...
She came from nice, comfortable house.
Yes.
Her
Germany,
husband was
beautiful,
a
and-
successful dentist. He had to start all over again here. And she was miserable here for quite a few years. I don't think she ever got over this immigration, really. But they were saved.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, did she live to see the benefits
Yes,
of it?
yes,
Okay, okay.
yes. She didn't quite admit it, but the benefits that she did see.
Yes. Every silver cloud has a dark lining, if you want to look for it. But no, it wasn't easy being in Israel. And it wasn't Israel. It
No,
was
it was
Palestine.
yeah.
And it was British mandate. And they were in coalition with the Arabs. And it wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy times at all.
Well, so we have your mother's family and we have your father's family coming to Israel. We haven't talked about how did those 2 families come together in the form of your parents. Do you remember how where they met? Or?
Yes. My mother's family came to live in Tel Aviv. And my father's family was at that time in Evet Tzedek, which is the first neighborhood of Tel Aviv.
Okay, okay.
And some people who knew both families got them together.
Oh, really?
Invited them for afternoon tea some Shabbat, and that's how they met. And
Did you say, you said sub Shabbat? What was some on a Shabbat?
On a Shabbat.
Okay,
Yeah.
so come over for tea maybe on a Saturday afternoon, because that's an afternoon is tea time in the
Right.
British,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
okay, so that would have been on Saturday
So
afternoon.
they met, and very quickly they
Oh, very
joined
nice, very
each
nice.
other.
And so obviously they had you. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had an older sister.
Okay.
They were married in 1933.
33. Oh, that's a big year in Germany, of course.
And I had an older sister.
Okay. How many years older than you was your sister?
She was 4.5 years older.
Okay, okay. And so what age would that put you for when everything came together in 1948? How old were you?
I was 10.
You were 10 years
old.
old. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that introduction. I want to ask you about your father and about Tel Aviv and so forth. Let's begin that then on our next segment. So we're going to take a break, and we will come back and get into the details of her father's administration for the city of Tel Aviv and what it was like. So until then, this is Bob Odell from Root Source saying shalom. Well, this is Bob Odell with Root Source, and we are returning with Iry Ricci and talking about her father and what it was like to live in Tel Aviv in 1948. Hi, Iry.
Hi.
Thanks for continuing with us here.
Okay.
So we talked about your life here, where we are, and you told the story of your father's family and your mother's family and how they came to Palestine. There was no Israel then. Mm-hmm. And so we're up to about the point of your father. How is it that your father came to be the mayor of the largest city in Palestine, Tel Aviv?
Yeah. He was doing certain other things in the municipality of Tel Aviv, in the city of Tel Aviv. He was the head of one of the departments, and he kind of went up. And at some point, Dizengoff, who was the first mayor of Tel Aviv,
Okay.
Appointed him to be the deputy mayor.
Okay.
So they worked very closely together.
Okay, so he was underneath Dizengoff.
Underneath Dizengoff.
Okay, that's like a big street in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
I never knew what that name was.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when Dizengoff passed away, 1936.
Yes.
The British were then in power in Palestine, and they made sure that my father would be the next mayor. It wasn't.
Oh.
There were no elections exactly at that time
Right.
when Dizengoff passed away. A few years later, there were elections, and he was elected. But becoming the mayor was because Dizengoff passed away.
So, I guess I didn't even think about this. So, in the time of the British mandate, they decided that we should have mayors of cities, I guess. They figured it's...
The city council was trying to vote, and there was some kind of, all kinds of inner fights, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And they pushed it. They pushed it. They wanted.
Yeah, they wanted to have some local government, and not just have British rulers at every turn. And so Dizengoff was selected. Was the British government reasonably happy with him? Do they work with him okay?
With my father?
No, Dizengoff first.
As far as I know,
okay.
yes.
Okay, and
Yeah.
and then as the deputy mayor, the British government decided we want him. So what do you think they saw in your father that?
From what I know and read, they saw that he was very good administrator.
Okay.
First of all, that he would be. It was a larger city at that time. That he would take care of the services and the organization and so forth.
And so when did this? What year?
1936.
36.
Yeah. And.
So
It wasn't, later on we'll see when we talk about it, it was not a matter of getting along with them, with the British or not. There were lots of conflicts, and there was some areas of cooperation. It was very mixed up.
okay, so he came into the mayor at 36, and now that's still 12 years until Israel would be formed.
Right.
Were there any particular stories or things that might be interesting for us to hear within those years?
He treated Tel Aviv as if it was a state, a country.
He did?
He wanted to develop the school system.
Uh-huh.
He developed a local hospital that would serve the city of Tel Aviv. All these services that very often a country gives.
Yes?
He developed, and he was very, very devoted to his work.
By the way, was Tel Aviv only a Jewish city at that point?
No.
Were there any Arabs at all?
Yes, no,
Okay,
it was
okay.
completely Jewish.
Completely Jewish. It was the biggest.
It was
by
the
that point?
biggest, and it was founded because of conflicts between Jews and Arabs in the neighborhoods that were
Just outside.
just outside.
Oh, okay.
There were lots of conflicts, and the group of people, among them my father's father, created the neighborhood that's called Neve Tzedek.
Neve Tzedek.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's where my father was born and grew up. And later...
Huh. And, I mean, some of our viewers may know this, but just could you tell us, what does Tel Aviv mean?
Yes, it's combined of two words. Tel is like archaeological excavations, and Aviv is spring. So it combines the old and the new, and that was...
That's very nice. And so he had this idea to treat the city as if it was a state and to try to start organizing services for it. Now, where did he get the inspiration to do that? Had he seen it done someplace else? Had he heard about it? Or
He, a few things. He studied electrical engineering in Switzerland prior to that. And from things that he told later and wrote, he saw how things are being done in Switzerland. He looked at the wider picture. And but when he came to work for the city as a administrator, but on a much lower level, you know, he said that he learned slowly and looked around and understood what had to be done. But he always mentioned that his father, who was the founder of Neve Tzedek, saw himself as a public servant. You have to serve the public, the people. And he identified with him and he wanted to become like him.
Wow.
While his brothers became businessmen and so forth. But he...
Yeah. So he saw his father model public service within the neighborhood, and now he takes it to and extends that to what is to become the biggest city
to
today.
the extent that it was possible.
Yes.
It was a foreign rule. I mean, he couldn't do anything he wanted. But
Right. Right. So, so what was it like? What kinds of things happened in those years?
Lots of things. Those years were complicated in Palestine, as people know, because we had the Etzel and the Lehi, those groups that were like underground groups against the British.
Yes.
So that's one area that was complicated.
Oh, right, because your father would know about those things that were happening, but he was caught in the middle because the British would want him to disclose what's going on, but he had to try to have relationships with both without. Oh my goodness, I didn't think about that.
It was very difficult, but because he was cooperating with the undergrounds more than with the British, he was put in jail in 1946 or 7, I'm not sure now, because the British accused him that he knew that the Etzel would grab a few of the British soldiers and tried to kill them. So he was in jail together with the other people, other mayors.
Other mayors were also put in jail. Where was that?
In Latrun.
Latrun. Oh, of course, we know that as the sort of the gateway to the road to Tel Aviv. I mean to Jerusalem.
Yes. So until this day, when I go to Latrun, for some reason, that's what I think of.
Wow, wow. Do you ever drive by? You're driving from Mevaseret Zion and you drive down to Tel Aviv and you pass Latrun and you see that and you think about
The
that.
funny thing is that Latrun has now the memorial for all the tank
The tank commanders.
commanders
Yes.
who were ever who died or who fought since the state was established. So I go there when my grandson has ceremonies for ending the course or
Really.
Yeah,
We had a
close.
root source tour or earlier in around the 70th anniversary of Israel, and on the actual memorial on the actual anniversary, the 70th anniversary on the Hebrew calendar, we visited Latrun. Gedon wanted to go there because Gedon was a tank commander, and yet your father
It was
was incarcerated because he loved the Jews and loved this idea of independence, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
what must not have been an easy road.
No, it wasn't easy at all. There were lots of things that happened. Sometimes the British would put, I don't know how do you call it, when nobody can leave the house.
Okay, like a quarantine or a
Yes,
blockade or
yeah.
something. Okay.
And they gave him special permission to drive around and see that things are okay. But it was a very tough time.
Yes. So, so somehow your father got released from this.
Yeah.
Maybe what
It took, we went to visit him once.
you remember,
I remember,
as a little girl.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He was there for 6 weeks. But the difficult thing was how he was taken, because they came into the house, the British soldiers, at about 5 in the morning, and woke us all up. And,
That must have been terrifying.
yeah, it was terrifying, but he was very brave and didn't, he went with a pride.
Right. He stood
Yeah.
up tall and.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So we're almost to that big moment about coming to the founding and refounding of the State of Israel. So let's come back and do that in our next segment. So until then, this is Bob Odell speaking with Iry Ricci, and we will be back. Until then, shalom. Well, Bob Odell with Root Source, and I am pleased to be with Iry Ricci. We've been talking about your father, who's mayor of Tel Aviv, and your mother's family, your father's family. And so let's get to that point now in 47, 48. What was it like to be here at this time when...
Yeah, it was very rough, because there were already, the War of Independence hadn't quite started, but there was a lot of conflicts and shooting and a very rough time.
I mean, when you say there was shooting, are you saying like, you read the newspaper that they're shooting, or do you actually, do you hear gunshots in the city of Tel Aviv?
No, you didn't hear gunshots in the city of Tel Aviv. But because my father was the mayor, I heard that.
Oh, it's coming up in the family conversations.
Yeah, and he comes home and he talks.
Oh my.
And in Jaffa, which was an Arab city mostly,
Yes.
there were more conflict, because there were some Jews there too. When we heard that people were trying to go to Jerusalem, that was dangerous, because there was some kind of
You mean to try to
to drive to Jerusalem.
Yes.
Was dangerous.
Yes.
For a while,
All right.
An interesting that happened, it was right before the creation of the state, my father was asked to go to the United States for a few weeks to talk to the various Zionist groups in different cities.
Was he there to raise money, or were they looking for arms, or looking for
Everything.
people? Everything they could get.
Everything. They talked, he represented it's from the
So, the JNF?
the JNF asked him to go, him and another person who represented
Yes.
Israelis,
Yes.
and they went for at least a month and talked to various Jewish groups in the United States.
So just to make sure people understand, so the JNF, the Jewish National Fund, is the fund that was founded really by Theodore Herzl and has been in existence really since the early 1900s, and it's still the largest now philanthropic organization in Israel. But then the main point was the Zionist cause. Of course,
Exactly.
because that's what Herzl was all about.
Yeah.
And your father was involved in that Zionist movement, and so he was going to recruit. And your father left Tel Aviv at a very critical time in its history to try to...
For a month, yeah.
Wow, for about a month.
Yeah. And at that time, there were no cell phones, and
Yes.
there were barely telephones in the country.
Right.
So I
So there was no
remember-
way to know.
I remember that we couldn't talk, my sister and me, we couldn't talk to them unless there was special arrangement with the city government to talk to them, and then they called us to say hello,
Oh,
which is
okay.
unheard of today.
Oh, I know. It's just it's so different. So in 1947, November 1947, the UN votes in this creation of the Jewish state.
Yes.
Do you remember what that was like here?
Yes, I remember that that was a vote I remember that all the windows were open in the houses, and you could walk along the street and
Yes.
hear each country, yes or no.
Oh, you mean they're playing? Everybody's got it
Everybody.
on in the radio.
Everybody had over
The radio's on and they're listening to the vote?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Sitting like this.
Oh my goodness. And you're walking down the street and you hear the sounds from,
Yes,
oh my
yes.
goodness.
Yeah. And then when it was passed, there was people started dancing in certain squares in the street.
Yes.
And my father went to the building of the city government, which is not today, it's another place. And people gathered and danced, and he talked to them. It was very, very happy, even though everybody knew that there was going to be a war very soon, because the shooting already started.
Right.
And everything. I was a kid, but everybody knew that's the beginning of the war. But they were happy about the decision.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember it.
You're 9 years old at that point.
Yeah.
Did you just stand and watch them dance? Did you join in any way?
I didn't join, I was too young, but I saw, saw, and I knew that where he went, and I mean, everybody had felt a part of it. It's hard to imagine today how people can be so united
Yes.
about, their fate,
Yes.
actually.
People knew a war was coming,
Yeah.
but they celebrated at that on that day, and so then the months go by, and you're waiting, hoping. Now the British mandate is going to expire in May 14th, 1948. Do you remember any thoughts or feelings about what it was like for you?
I remember mostly the tension, the knowledge that there will be war.
Yeah.
Somehow I didn't know exactly what it means, but yeah.
Did your parents sit you down and your sister and say, look, this is what could happen now? I mean, or did you just pick it up at the conversation at the dinner table? How was it?
They didn't sit us down to talk, but our whole life was around what was happening. When I was very little and I was growing up,
Yes.
it was always talked. You
It
know,
was always talked.
I was always up to date about what goes
Yes.
on. I knew people came to our house to meetings with my father when he finished work at the city government. He would bring people home to work with him. We would bring work. It was endless kind of active life in our house. So I always knew what was happening. Yeah.
But by the way, were you in school during the daytime there? Was there some public school there? And
I was in school, public school, yeah.
Were you closest with your older sister, your parents? Did you have a close friend? What was that like for you?
It reminds me of something else that I wanted to say
Okay.
about him, and then I'll come back to
Okay,
it.
please.
That my father felt that elementary school was already free, but he wanted high school to be free also.
Oh.
And he somehow arranged it that kids could go to a free high school, city high school, which was one of the things that were most close to his heart. As I said before, you know, he was worried about services,
Yes.
but education was, you know, number one.
Number one.
Yeah.
Number one.
But yes, I had very good friends from school. Two of them are friends of mine until today.
Oh.
We remained close all these years.
Nice.
Which is possible in Israel because we are such a small country that you can see.
You can
the same
continue to
people.
see, yes.
Yeah. I was close to my parents and to my sister. She was older. She looked to me. She was 4.5 years old, but she looked to me like she was much older.
So May 14th, 1948 comes along.
Yeah.
And there's this signing of the Declaration, is it the Independence document? I think they don't call
Declaration.
it. They do
Yeah,
call
it's
it Declaration of Independence.
That's not. Yeah.
What do you recall about that
I
day?
recall that my father was there.
Your father was there in the room?
Yeah, he was
Okay.
there in the room. He wasn't one of the people who signed the
Uh-huh.
declaration, but he was invited. It happened to be in what at that time was the museum, the Tel Aviv Museum.
Uh-huh.
It's not now, but it was. It was the home of the first mayor of Tel Aviv, of Dizengoff.
Yes. Oh, that
And-
became a museum?
And he gave it, the city inherited it from him.
Oh.
And that's the place that they chose to do the Declaration of Independence. And it so happened that it was on the same street where we lived.
You're kidding.
No,
Okay.
it's Rothschild Boulevard.
Rothschild Boulevard.
Do you
okay.
know of it? in Tel Aviv?
I don't actually. We could
Okay.
Google it today
Yeah.
with our phones.
Yeah.
But no.
It's a very nice street. We lived in an apartment on that street. So you could walk.
So when that was being signed, do you remember where you were?
Yes, I was home with my mother and then.
Okay. And so you're just like waiting to hear, so they're going to do it. They're going to do it. Will the United States, did you like know, were you like aware of this issue about, would the United States recognize?
I think I did, but
Yeah.
I read about it so much later that I'm not.
Oh yes, it
sure
would
if it's-
all
Yeah,
mixes up, right? Because you were 10 years old, and then after that, then there's the threat of war. So like you're not going to school after that, right?
I didn't go to school. I went to be for, I think, a couple of weeks or maybe 3 or 4 weeks at the house of my uncle who lived out in the country.
Mm-hmm.
My father's brother.
Mm-hmm.
Both me and my sister were sent there for a couple of weeks, few weeks, I don't know. And the offices of the city were moved because I knew that they would try to bomb the city.
Yes.
They moved to one of the school buildings. He was there.
Okay.
And Tel Aviv was bombed at one point. And
But you were out of the city at that
for a
point.
while I
right?
wasn't, and then we came
And
back.
then when it looked like the tide had turned on the war, and
No, we came back pretty soon because we didn't want to stay away from home for too long.
Okay.
So we came
Okay.
back, and there was war. We learned very early what it's like, and you hear of people getting wounded. And my father goes, to visit and to funerals, and
right.
yeah, very. And I remember when went back to school, we didn't stay home the whole time. I guess there was times when there were truce.
A truce? Yes.
That's good. The open, and I remember our homeroom teacher telling us that her brother is missing in action, and it's
Right. It really brings it home when you have that. And I guess it took about a year, really, before there was before the temporary truces became the permanent, and the armistice agreement was signed.
Yeah.
So when we come back, I want to ask Iry, and we'll conclude our interview in talking about how her father continued his career and about Israel today. So until then, this is Bob Odell with Root Source for Iry Ricci saying Shalom.
Shalom.
Hello, this is Root Source, Bob Odell here with Iry Ricci, and we've been talking about what it's like to be here at the reformation of the State of Israel after almost 2,000 years. And one thing I didn't ask you, but I knew that I should have asked you, was about your name. There's a connection between your name and this story that we're telling. What is that?
When I was born, my father was already the mayor of Tel Aviv.
Oh, you're already the mayor?
Yeah. And he wanted a special name, and somebody suggested to him, and he took it. My name means my city.
My city, Iry.
City.
Like
Iry, my
yes.
city.
Okay.
And because he was in love with Tel Aviv, with his city,
Whoa.
he took it, and that's my name.
Whoa. So parents are pregnant with their second child, and there you are, and you name your child My City. That sounds like something right out of the Bible to me. I don't know about you, but that is so beautiful that you. What was that like? Like when you knew that, not probably by the time you're 8 or 10 years old, you know that this is what your name means. And
you are asking the best question about it. It wasn't easy. My father, was very proud, and he wanted. For me, it wasn't easy because there wasn't such a name. They created it for me.
Oh my
It didn't
goodness.
exist. Even today, you don't find this name. There's
you are absolutely
Irit
right.
and
I have
Iris and all kinds, but no.
I have
So-
never heard of the name
Yeah.
Iry.
So when I was young and I was in school, elementary school, I really didn't like it at all because everybody would ask me, and I was a very shy little girl.
Yes.
And I didn't want to explain to everybody. And the teacher in the beginning of the class would ask me, that's why you're named like this. And so when I grew up, I became proud of it.
Yes.
But that's a different story.
Yes.
But as a kid, I didn't like to be that. I didn't want to be different.
So how long was your father the mayor of Tel Aviv?
Altogether, he was from 36 to 50, 16 years.
Okay, wow, 36,
36 to 52.
To 52. Your father was part of course, after Israel was founded, after the armistice agreement was signed, and it looked like there was reasonable possibility of safety, that there would be some kind of state. Your father had to preside over a very difficult situation you were telling me it relates to the city of Jaffa and Tel Aviv. What was that?
Right. Jaffa was mostly Arab city, and Tel Aviv, and with relatively poor population.
And Jaffa is just slightly south of Tel Aviv, right?
Right,
It was to the, okay.
It's also on the beach. Along
Yes,
the beach.
Jaffa was on the beach, but Tel Aviv was inland? Or was Tel Aviv on the beach too? Also on the beach.
Still
Okay.
is on the beach. And the government was decided that they should join Tel Aviv and Jaffa into one city.
The government of Israel.
The new government of Israel.
Oh, as a symbol of how we can live together in peace
Yeah,
and things.
yeah.
Okay.
So, first of all, there was a big discussion about how will you call the new city? Jaffa, Tel Aviv, Jaffa. They took my father's suggestion that it be called Tel Aviv Jaffa. Tel Aviv Jaffa. Ben-Gurion at first wanted to call it Jaffa, the whole thing.
Oh, just
Because Jaffa is an old, ancient
yes,
city.
yes.
But at the end they called it Tel Aviv.
You've just answered a question for me. I have always wondered, when you go on Google Maps and you look at Tel Aviv, it says Tel Aviv-Yafo.
Nachon.
Yeah,
Right.
that's why.
So that's why it was a big to-do. And then my father said, you know, if you're joining these two cities, you have to give me a lot of resources for education, for cleaning the city, for this, for that. So he had a big fight with the government. He was in the government then.
Yes, yes.
And it wasn't easy to provide services to a city that didn't have them.
So your father ended up now being mayor of the combined city. Was there a mayor of Jaffa at the
No,
time?
but he appointed somebody like deputy, you know, to
Oh,
be responsible.
to be responsible for so that the Arab people would feel like they have a representative to speak with directly. And well, very nice. Now, why did your dad stop being the mayor in 1952?
Because in 1952 there were elections in the country. He was one of the leaders of the political party called the General Zionists.
General Zionist,
Yeah.
okay.
It was a middle of the way
Kind of a middle.
party.
Okay.
And the party won a lot of seats in the Knesset. And
Okay.
you know that our system of government has the coalition government.
Right.
The one who is appointed to be the prime minister is the man who is in the head of the biggest party.
Right.
And then he can decide what kind of coalition to form
Right.
for the government. So because the General Zionists won a large number of votes, of seats in Knesset, he invited them to join the coalition. In order to join the coalition, and he wanted my father specifically to be the Minister of Interior, because the Minister of Interior is in charge of all the local governments. And he thought that my father's experience would be very good for that.
Yes.
So my father was very conflicted about leaving, being the mayor of Tel Aviv. He loved it. He was invested emotionally.
If you name your second child after it, I mean, goodness, you know it's got to be right there with his heart.
He really was very, it was very difficult for him. He finally decided to take it.
The Ministry
of Interior.
Of the Interior.
Yeah.
What does the Ministry of Interior do? And that's still a position today in Israel.
Yeah, today it's different. At that time,
but at that time,
it was in charge of all the city councils, all the city councils, their budgets, their services. They had to approve anything that the city mayors do.
Yes.
Today it's different. So he decided finally to take it. It was a very, very difficult decision.
Very difficult decision.
I could see how difficult it was for him. But we had to move to Jerusalem.
Oh, of course. That's where the government was. Okay.
Yeah, and I had to pay my part by leaving school and going to a school in Jerusalem.
Okay.
And it took 2 years, and after 2 years there was some kind of crisis in the coalition, and he stopped being the minister.
Oh, right, because if the coalition shifts, then you can lose your position
Exactly, yeah.
very quickly, yeah. And approximately, when did your father finally pass away?
1959.
59, okay. So you've had a lot of years to reflect on that. It's been a long time. 1959 has been a long time since then. What sort of career did you select for yourself in the years that would follow?
I decided to study psychology.
Okay, psychology.
Yeah, I started studying at the Hebrew University.
Okay.
But then I saw in the newspaper an announcement that you can compete for a scholarship to go to the United States.
Yes.
Which I did. And I did the rest of my studies in the United States.
What university did you select in the US?
I didn't select the people, the foundation that gave the scholarship decided for the people who got it. So they sent me to, I'm breathing like this because I didn't like it, to Mount Holyoke College. Do you know what it is?
No. What was
Mount Holyoke. It's one of it's called the Seven Sisters in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Very good college, but only for women.
Oh, okay.
And for me, it was very, very strange because it doesn't exist here.
Yes.
You know,
There are a number of universities in the United States that in up until even 50 years ago, there was sort of women's colleges and men's colleges and so forth.
Yeah.
I know Baylor University did it.
And having been already in the army before,
oh my goodness!
It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me.
Well, then, how did you meet your husband? In America?
In America, yeah. Okay. I had a summer job in Washington, and that's where he lived. So we met through friends.
Okay. Well, it's been wonderful speaking with you and to hear this history. I feel like I have a little bit of sense now of on the ground, rather than just at the high level. I just have a little portal, a little window now into what it was like to be there in those times. I think I want to conclude by asking you, I know you talk about your father, I know you respect your father from the way you've been speaking about him. You're proud of him. You're proud of being named in my city, which is just fascinating. What do you see in Israel today that makes you feel proud of your father and what he did so many years ago in Tel Aviv?
I tried to look through his eyes if he saw it today.
Yes.
And I think that he would be very happy to see how the city has grown. And everybody wants to live in Tel Aviv.
Yes, it's huge.
It's very, very wonderful place. I think that he would be very upset if he heard of the prices of houses in Tel Aviv today.
Oh,
They're unbelievably high. It would depress him, I can say, because he always wanted young people to come to Tel Aviv and live, and today it's just about impossible. So I think he would be ambivalent. He would be very proud of the services of the city, and it has become and stayed a cultural center, for music, for the theater, for all the things that he was involved in the beginning. We didn't talk about it, but it's true. For that, he would be very happy, but I think he would have been happier if young people could come and live there.
It really, that has just, prices have skyrocketed in the last 10 years, and it really is a difficult issue. Yeah. And lastly, today Israel has full health care, and there's schools going up all over the place, and that sounds to me like that Israel today carries with it some of that DNA just from the way you describe it, it sounds like it's... So when you look at the services and the things that are happening in Israel today, do you think of your father?
I think of him, but I think that he would want more.
He would want more.
More social services. I think the social services are not enough for our needs.
Yes.
But
So if he was here today, he would be proud. He would also be looking for how things could be better still.
he would fight for more.
And would be willing to fight for
Yeah.
it. Well, I think that is a wonderful picture of a man that, wow, I wish, I could have met such a man myself. And I hope you've enjoyed this insight into Tel Aviv, to Israel, to its history, from Palestine to Israel. I'm just so thankful that you were willing to join us and tell us the story, Iry. And I will never forget your name in my entire life. I guarantee it. And I hope you don't either. So
I enjoyed talking to you.
thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much. So until we do this again with another interview, this is Bob Odell and
Iry Ricci.
Iry Ricci saying to you, Shalom.
Shalom.